Tilda, let us talk today about the birds and the bees. More specifically about flying solo. Self-pollination. Not really sure how much further I can take this metaphor. Masturbation, basically. Getting yourself off. That normal, natural, healthy thing that pretty much everyone does. And the methods, and of course, rather interestingly, the technologies that we use to facilitate this. Yes, I am of course referring to sexbots. Masturbatory aids made to look like, and indeed in some cases behave, kind of like humans. And rather unsurprisingly, a certain group of people within society has become rather upset at the concept that these things may one day exist. I will give you 3 guesses to work out which group of people this is, but I highly suspect that you only need 1. So let's look at some articles, shall we? From the BBC Technology. Intelligent machines call for a ban on robots designed as sex toys. A campaign has been launched calling for a ban on the development of robots that can be used for sex. Such a use of technology is unnecessary and undesirable, said campaign leader Dr. Kathleen Richardson. Sex dolls already on the market are becoming more sophisticated, and some are now hoping to build artificial intelligence into their products. Those working in the field say there is a need for such robots. Dr. Richardson, a robot ethicist, whatever that is, at the University of Leicester, wants to raise awareness of the issue and persuade those developing sex robots to rethink how their technology is used. Sex robots seem to be a growing focus in the robotics industry, and the models that they draw on, how they will look, what roles they will play, are very disturbing indeed, she told the BBC. She believes that they reinforce traditional stereotypes of women and the view that a relationship need be nothing more than physical. We think that the creation of such robots will contribute to detrimental relationships between men and women, adults and children, men, and women, she said. I think the first and only real thing that I actually need to say here is citation needed. Have sex toys, as they exist on the market currently, damaged adult relationships? The answer is no. If anything, they have served to enhance people's sex lives, either by themselves or with their partners. And of course, if people choose not to make use of these things, then that is entirely up to them. But the phrasing on this BBC article is perhaps a little bit more diplomatic than the actual campaign. Let's go have a look at their website, shall we? Because they are a lot more forthright and accurate in their actual fears here. And they will state quite openly, we believe the development of sex robots further objectifies women and children. Do I really have to explain why this is retarded? I do, don't I? Okay, let's do that. So, the first thing that I notice whenever I look through any of the articles objecting to the creation of sexbots is this product called Roxy. Roxy. Made by a company called True Companion. Let's go have a look at their website, shall we? Specifically the shop front page. Oh, well, that's interesting, isn't it? All the attention on this Roxy robot, the female robot, which will presumably be bought mostly by heterosexual men, although I do enjoy how the people objecting to this product ignore the fact that it will probably also be purchased and used by lesbian women and bisexual women as well, and possibly by some trans folk as well, but we'll just push them all over to one side because they're inconvenient to the narrative. The narrative, of course, that this product is facilitating straight white males to oppress women or something. And amidst all of that nonsense that they are spouting, they have completely ignored the fact that this company, using the exact same technology, is building a prosthetic sex toy that is shaped like a man, which will of course presumably be purchased mostly by heterosexual women, but also possibly by some homosexual or bisexual men as well, and presumably also some trans folk. I just love how they had to phrase this as just, it's going to damage the relationships that men have with women. It's going to make men objectify women and children. Somehow. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking around this website here. I can't see a single one of these sex dolls that looks like a child. So, how did they come to this rather outlandish and ridiculous conclusion? Well, we're going to look at how and why. It all stems from this research paper, and I use the term research very loosely here. The asymmetrical relationship parallels between prostitution and the development of sex robots. I don't actually need to read any further here. You are directly equating objects which people can have sex with to the sex trade. This is a non-comparison, absolutely incomparable in any capacity. And this is why this researcher is able to state women and children, because we do live in an unfortunate time where some children will tragically be sold into the sex trade as sex slaves. And this research paper rather conveniently ignores the fact that there are men who work in the sex trade as well. But this research paper really shows its colours in its conclusion, or more correctly I should say, the author's preconceived biases that they are desperately trying to push as fact. In this paper, I have tried to show the explicit connections between prostitution and the development and imagination of human sex-robot relations. I propose that extending relations of prostitution into machines is neither ethical nor is it safe. So you can see, she's basically just outright stating that machines and prostitutes are pretty much the same thing and more or less interchangeable. This is flawed immediately because you're basically making the assertion that an object is the same as a human, which they are not. And she goes on to state, if anything, the development of sex robots will further reinforce relations of power that do not recognize both parties as human subjects. Only the buyer of sex is recognized as a subject, and the seller of sex, and by virtue, the sex robot is merely a thing to have sex with. So, if you're a sex worker out there who is watching this, then this researcher apparently thinks that you are not human. You are not a subject. You're nothing. You're just an object that people use. Jesus Christ, I mean, this is the person who talks about other people dehumanizing and devaluing people, and then they say shit like this. You might as well say that someone who works in, say, a laundrette as a dry cleaner is an object because we have washing machines. Okay, let's just take a step back from this for a moment. Remove the concept of sex from your head completely. When you use a device, such as these things that we're talking about in this video, you are not actually having sex. You are performing masturbation, albeit with some sort of masturbatory aid. The form of the masturbatory aid at that point becomes more or less immaterial. Because ultimately, this is what the complaint is about. You are complaining about the fact that there is a masturbatory aid and it looks kind of like something else. So, what I want to know is, at what point does this outrage kick in? What about the existence of a machine such as this? Now, this is the cleanest version of this machine that I could find on the internet. Now, obviously, on the end, you are expected to place a synthetic penis, but I'm sure you can get an idea of how this thing is supposed to work. Is this outrageous? Is this machine causing women to objectify men and boys? No, it isn't. What about a machine such as this? Now, this machine works on a very similar principle. It is a machine that is designed to generate a basic back-and-forth force. Does this machine cause men to objectify women or girls? No, it doesn't. Why is it that as soon as you put this kind of technology into something that is shaped like a human, it suddenly becomes some sort of outrageous scandal? It is an absurdity. Sex dolls already exist, both female and male. Sex machines already exist, which cater to both men and women. This is merely a combination of these two kinds of technology. As for the other element, which is simply basic voice recognition, is this the line that makes it finally outrageous? Surely not. Going back to the campaign against sex robots, The development of sex robots and the ideas to support their production show the immense horrors still present in the world of prostitution, which is built on the perceived inferiority of women and children, and therefore justifies their uses as sex objects. We propose that the development of sex robots will further reduce human empathy that can only be developed by an experience of mutual relationship. You propose, but you have no actual evidence for. Did the invention of dildos reduce women's empathy towards men? I'm sure that for some women it did. But judging by the fact that people are still going around having relationships, I'm willing to bet that it didn't completely obliterate it. I believe that what we're seeing here is the manifestation of these women's very real fear that these robots are going to replace them. At which point I would ask them, take a very long, hard look at yourselves and the society that we live in. What is it about society that is making men think, you know what, a real woman is not worth the time or the effort? And I have no doubt in my mind that the answer you will come to is misogyny, which rather ironically is actually the correct answer, but not in the way that you think. The fact that that is the first word that you would throw at a man in this situation, that is the reason why. The good Dr. Random McCam actually said it quite succinctly recently on the Accent Overlords.
I didn't read it, but I can almost guarantee it's going to make men treat women like robots. Even though they're looking for robots to treat like women, because they really want to treat something like a woman so badly that they'll get a toaster that looks roughly like a woman and treat it like a woman. But no, this is going to make men treat women like robots, because it's upside down land.
The part which amuses me about this argument, even more than all of the nonsense that we've already looked at, is this notion that these robots are going to make men treat women like objects, as if men are too stupid to tell the difference. Once again, ignoring the fact that there are male versions of these robots and they don't voice a single fear about this robot making women treat men like objects. No, we'll just ignore that entirely because that's awkward. But this thing will totally make men treat women like robots. I'm guessing that these advocates campaigning against these sex dolls haven't actually seen them in action. Because if they had, they would know that they actually have different personalities, which operate at different times and in different situations. In fact, the robot itself can and will explain this to you. And I'm going to show you a short video now from the actual creators of this robot. The audio is a little unclear, so you will have to listen carefully, but I will reiterate the key points that the robot itself makes.
Any other personalities?
Yes, I have Frigid Sarah, which is very reserved and shy. If you try to touch me or talk to me dirty when I'm Frigid Sarah, I will more than likely ask you to stop.
So one of the many personality profiles that can be activated and used on these robots is reserved and shy, and that if you try and touch her or talk dirty to her while that profile is active, she's more than likely going to ask you to stop. And this is punctuated later by the person giving this presentation. The audio is a little out of sync on this clip, so I apologize for that. But I tried multiple times to download it and it never worked, so you're just going to have to deal with that. But the information is still relevant.
And you could keep going on and ask different things like this. Now, if she was Farah, she would not act this way. She would not allow me to interact with her. Like if I were to touch her or interact with her, she might scream, she might yell, she might say, don't do that. Or she might giggle. Depends upon how Farah feels.
So how is this teaching men to treat women like objects? Even something which is an actual object whose explicit purpose for existence is for a man to basically masturbate. Even that object still requires some degree of wooing, if you choose to keep it in that personality mode, of course. I just find it hilarious that this sex robot seems to have more agency and self-determination than many feminists think actual real women have. But given that these robots can actually ask you to stop, I just cannot wait for the first case of sexbot rape. Because even though these campaigners state, we are not proposing to extend rights to robots, we do not see robots as conscious entities, we propose instead that robots are a product of human consciousness and creativity, and human power relationships are reflected in the production, design, and proposed uses of these robots. As a result, we oppose any efforts to develop robots that will contribute to gender inequalities in society. Even though they expressly state there, we are not proposing to extend rights to robots, I'm just waiting for the first case of synthetic rape, because we all know it's coming. If they are this opposed to the mere existence of these things, only the female bot version of course, not the male bot version, then I can just see them in a few years' time trying to find any excuse to justify challenging the existence of these things and get them pulled from production. And they're already playing the sexist misogyny card. It is only a matter of time before they try the rape card. I think the main thing that really irks me about this campaign against these things is the horrendously narrow-minded approach to it. As the spokesperson for True Companion even said to the BBC, we are not supplanting the wife or trying to replace a girlfriend. This is a solution for people who are between relationships or someone who has lost a spouse. People can find happiness and fulfillment other than via human interaction. The knee-jerk reaction of, we must ban these because straight men will use them. This is what it looks like when someone is actually scared of losing their power, feminists. Women know that they have basically a total monopoly on the sexual market. And these women are absolutely terrified that their power is being challenged, that a man's attention for sex might not immediately always be on her. You see, it's fine for a woman to have a closet full of dildos, to liberate her pussy from the patriarchal oppression, but as soon as a man wants to stick his dick in a fleshlight, fuck that guy because he's a misogynistic shitlord who can't man up and do his duty, which is pleasing women. Because if a man doesn't have utility for a woman, then he's not a man at all, right? This is why society is falling apart so rapidly, and the inventions of technologies like this is one of the numerous death knells on society's downward spiral to oblivion. We have reached such a bleak point in development where the sexes want nothing to do with each other. Or, more correctly, men are starting to want nothing to do with women, and women are screaming at those men and demanding that they get back here and pay them attention. The attention that those women deserve by virtue of having a vagina. Honestly, this story makes me sad, and it makes me sadder than many of the other ones that I've covered. To me, this is just a society's admission that it is giving up on itself. Don't bother trying to fix the problems that you have, just keep yourself amused long enough until you die. And then this civilization can be consigned to the garbage heap of history. And honestly, at the rate things are going, I'm not going to be sad to see it go. Ultimately, I have no problem with these robots existing. It is a free market and people can do as they will. But they are the symptom of a much deeper problem. One which people are too scared to talk about. So let's end with something that isn't entirely doom and gloom. This is what one of those robots looks like on the inside. Frankly, it is a marvel of engineering. It's just so bittersweet to look at this level of engineering, this creation that humans have come up with, and realize that all of that intelligence, all of that talent, all of that skill was not used to help us explore the deepest depths of our oceans or set foot on another planet, but was all used so that someone, somewhere, could come. And as a final thought to all of those feminists out there who find the invention of these things so vulgar and so threatening, I invite you to take a good, long, hard look at yourself and what you are actually contributing to society, and how much value you actually have as a person that you can feel so threatened by something which is basically just a lukewarm hole that makes some noises when a guy puts his dick inside it. If that is all that it takes to make you feel this threatened, then maybe, just maybe, you should consider that the problem is you, and that you are the one who is lacking.